On my 60th birthday, I sat alone in my quiet living room, a single candle flickering on a small cake I had bought for myself. My daughter, Riley, had told me she had to work late. My granddaughter had a tutoring session. They promised we'd celebrate tomorrow. But just a few hours later I saw them, on a video shared by someone I didn't even know, gathered in a private dining room, laughing, singing, standing beside the man who broke our family, and the woman he chose over me. My daughter looked at her with a smile and said, "Happy birthday, Mom." I had raised Riley alone after her father left us. I gave her everything, my time, my money, my youth, my heart. I thought we were unbreakable. But that night something inside me shattered. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's a story about letting go, about reclaiming your worth, even when the people you love the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest, and how sometimes walking away is the only way to survive. My name is Amanda. I'm 65 years old, and for most of my life, I believed that love meant sacrifice, that if you gave enough, forgave enough, stayed silent long enough, the people you loved would understand. But they didn't. I was a mother, wife, caregiver, a grandmother. I cooked, cleaned. I raised a child on my own and never once asked for thanks. Because love to me didn't need applause. But the day I saw my daughter celebrate another woman's birthday, the woman who helped destroy my marriage, I realized something. All those years I spent pouring from an empty cup had left me invisible, and maybe, just maybe, it was time to live for myself. I still remember the day my world quietly came undone. It wasn't loud. There were no slammed doors or screaming matches. Just a single sentence from the man I had loved for over a decade. And the way he stood there, holding 2 children that weren't mine. "Amanda, they need a father. And I need to be with her." Or, Catherine, his first love. The woman who had lost her husband in a tragic car accident. And now apparently needed my husband too. Charles didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't cry or hesitate. He simply handed me the divorce papers, kissed our daughter Riley on the forehead, and walked out the door with another woman's children in his arms. I stood frozen in the hallway, Riley clinging to my leg, sobbing, "Please, Daddy, don't go." But Charles never looked back. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just signed the papers and let him go, because somewhere deep inside I already knew, if someone can leave that easily, they were never really yours to begin with. That moment changed everything. From being a wife with a home and a family, I became a single mother overnight. No partner, no support, no backup plan. Just a terrified little girl and a mountain of unanswered questions. But I made a promise to myself that day. If I have to raise this child alone, I'll do it with love. And I'll make sure she never feels abandoned again. You see, heartbreak doesn't always show up with betrayal. Sometimes it shows up with silence, with absence, with empty dinner tables and unspoken goodbyes. And yet, I never regretted leaving, because sometimes the strongest thing a woman can do is choose herself over someone who never truly chose her. That's how it all began, the quiet ending of a marriage, and the beginning of a story far more powerful, one of resilience, of sacrifice, of a mother's unconditional love. But back then I had no idea what was still to come, that the very child I had chosen over everything would one day grow up and break my heart in the exact same way. They say a woman becomes strongest when she has no other choice. For me, that strength was born in the quiet hours between sunrise and school drop-offs, in late nights folding laundry, and early mornings making pancakes on a budget. After Charles left, it was just me and Riley. I didn't have family nearby. No siblings. No parents to lean on. Just a 2-bedroom apartment. A second-hand car that coughed every time it started. And a 3-year-old with tear-stained cheeks who asked for her daddy every night. I worked 2 jobs, receptionist by day, waitress by night. There were times I couldn't afford a babysitter, so I'd bring Riley with me to the diner, giving her crayons and a coloring book while I served tables. On days when my tips were good, we'd celebrate with 1 ice cream cone and 2 spoons. On days they weren't, We'd cuddle under the blanket and pretend oatmeal was a gourmet feast. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. And it was enough. One night, after a long shift, I found Riley asleep on the couch, still wearing her backpack. She had waited up, hoping I'd be home in time to help her with her spelling words. My heart broke a little in that moment. So the next day I quit one of my jobs. The bills piled up, yes, but I made sure I was home when she needed me most. I sold my engagement ring to buy her a new coat. I skipped meals so she could go on field trips. I learned how to braid hair from a YouTube video because she wanted princess braids like the other girls at school. Every bedtime, I'd whisper in her ear, "You are loved, you are safe, and I will always, always choose you." Looking back, I realize I gave Riley everything I had. Not just my time or my money, but my energy, my health, my youth, my whole self. And here's the truth many mothers won't say out loud. We don't expect our children to pay us back. But we pray deep down that they'll at least remember. That they'll grow up knowing how much it took. How much we gave up. But life doesn't always work that way. Years passed, and Riley blossomed. She made it to college on a scholarship. Fell in love. Got married. And then, she had a daughter of her own. Her name was Annie. And just like her mother before her, she had my heart from the very first moment. I told myself this time it would be different. This time they'd see me, appreciate me. I didn't know then that history had a cruel way of repeating itself. But before the heartbreak came again, there was warmth, there was love, and there was the quiet devotion of a grandmother who gave everything. One more time. When Riley had her daughter, Annie, I felt like my heart had found a new rhythm. A baby's laugh in the house again, tiny socks on the laundry line, the smell of warm formula in the morning. It all brought back memories of when Riley was small. Felt like a second chance, not just at motherhood but at purpose. Riley and her husband Jack were young, ambitious, and exhausted. They were trying to build careers, juggle student loans, and navigate the high cost of living in the city. So when they asked me if I could help a little with Annie, I said yes without a second thought. First, it was small things. Watching Annie for a few hours so they could rest. Bringing over home-cooked meals. Tidying up the apartment when I dropped by. But a little slowly became all the time. Before long, I was the one waking Annie up for preschool, brushing her hair into neat pigtails, packing her lunchbox with little notes that said, "You're amazing." I did school pickups, doctor's appointments, grocery shopping, cleaning, laundry. I wasn't just helping, I was running their home. They never said thank you. Not in a mean way. Just out of habit. It became expected. They'd come home to a spotless house, a warm dinner on the table, their daughter already bathed and tucked in, and they'd sigh with relief. Jack would say, "You're a lifesaver, Amanda," then disappear into his phone. Riley would smile, kiss Annie goodnight, and go straight to her laptop. And I told myself, this is love. Love means showing up. Love means staying even when you're tired. But quietly, something shifted inside me. Because over time, love stopped feeling like love, and started to feel like duty. I had traded one set of sacrifices for another. My own plans, my hobbies, my savings, once again poured into someone else's life. And the older I got, the more I began to wonder, would they ever see me as more than just the help? Would Annie even remember who raised her? Here's something I've learned, and I hope it reaches someone who needs to hear it. It's okay to give, but it's not okay to disappear. The moment your kindness becomes someone else's expectation, you stop being appreciated and start becoming invisible. But still I stayed. 'Cause I loved them. Because Annie's little arms around my neck made every tired bone in my body feel worth it. Because I thought just maybe they'd remember all this someday. But I never expected what came next. The one day I had asked for myself was the day they chose to give to someone else. And it wasn't just anyone. They chose the very woman who once tore our family apart. I didn't ask for a big celebration. All I wanted on my 60th birthday was a quiet dinner with the people I loved. Maybe a slice of cake, a hug from my granddaughter, a simple, "Happy birthday, Mom." The week before, Riley insisted she wanted to plan something special. "Don't lift a finger," she told me. "You've done enough for us already. This is your day." Her words warmed my heart. For a moment I felt seen. I spent the morning cooking breakfast for Riley, Jack, and little Annie, just as I always did. They kissed me goodbye, said they had a long workday ahead. Annie had a last-minute tutoring session. They promised we'd celebrate tomorrow. I believed them. Of course I did. Because when you love someone, you trust them. That evening, I sat in the living room alone. The sun had set. The dinner I made sat untouched. I opened my phone to scroll through a few videos, just something to pass the time. Then I saw it. A video posted just an hour ago of a private birthday party in a hotel's dining room. I tapped it, curious. The camera panned across a table full of smiling faces. And there they were. Really? Annie. All standing next to him. Earls. And at the center of it all, Catherine. They were singing "Happy Birthday," laughing, toasting champagne. And then, clear as day, I heard Riley's voice. "Happy birthday, Mom." She wasn't talking to me. She was looking right at Catherine, with a smile I hadn't seen in years. Like that woman was the center of her world. I dropped my phone. It hit the floor with a thud, but the video kept playing on loop. And so did my thoughts. Did Riley forget who raised her? Did she forget the nights I held her when her father left? The school plays I never missed. The meals I skipped so she could eat better. She called the woman who tore our family apart Mom. That single word, wrapped in sweetness, cut deeper than anything Charles had ever done. I sat there for hours, the house silent, the lights dim. At one point, I smelled something burning in the kitchen. In my days, I had left the soup on the stove. I rushed in, burned my fingers, turned off the heat, only to be interrupted by a knock at the door. It was the delivery man, holding the cake I had ordered myself. Tiny one. Nothing fancy. Just something to mark the day. I placed a few candles on top, sat alone on the couch, closed my eyes to make a wish. I had planned to wish for Riley's happiness, for Annie's health, for Jack's success. But in that moment, all I could think about was the lie, the betrayal. So instead I made a new wish. I wished to live the rest of my life for me. Not for Riley, not for anyone else, just for me. Here's the thing about heartbreak when you're older. Doesn't scream, doesn't shout. It just settles in quietly, like dust in an empty room. And if you're not careful, you'll start believing that's where you belong. But that night, as I blew out the candles on my lonely little cake, I decided something. I may be old, but I am not invisible. And I refuse to spend the rest of my life waiting for someone to remember me. But before I could walk away from it all, I had to face her. Had to know why. Riley came home just after 11 that night. I was still sitting in the living room, the tiny birthday cake untouched on the table, the candles long since melted into waxy puddles. She stepped through the door, her heels clicking softly on the floor. When she saw me sitting there in the dark, her body stiffened. "Oh, Mom, you're still up." Jack and little Annie followed close behind her, still giggling about something they had seen at the hotel. The moment they noticed me, the laughter died. Riley blinked, then smiled. "We're celebrating tomorrow, remember? Work was brutal today. You wouldn't believe the meetings we had." I didn't respond. I simply asked calmly, "Where did you go tonight?" She froze. Her eyes flicked toward Jack, then Annie, as if searching for a lifeline. Then she said, "Work, of course. I told you that already." Annie, trying to be helpful, chirped, "Grandma, we didn't eat cake today." Her little face beamed with pride, unaware of the weight behind her words. Riley reached out quickly, trying to hush her. But it was too late. I stood up, walked to the coffee table, picked up my phone, and set it gently in front of Riley. The video played. No one spoke. I watched her face shift, from panic to guilt to something colder. Resignation. She sat down on the couch, her shoulders sinking. "Mom, it's been years," she said. "You're still not over Dad. Still holding a grudge." I've stayed away from him out of respect for you, but I'm an adult now. Have a family. I get to make my own choices. I nodded slowly. And one of those choices was calling the woman who destroyed our family Mom. Riley's tone sharpened. Catherine treats me with kindness. She never made me pick sides. She never slapped me or made me feel guilty for living my life. That's when something in me snapped. The daughter I had carried, fed, fought for, the girl who had cried in my arms asking why her father didn't want her, was now looking me in the eye and defending the very people who had thrown us away. I whispered, "So you think I'm the villain? Is that it?" She didn't answer, but she didn't deny it either. Then softly, quietly, I raised my hand, and I slapped her. The room went still. She stumbled back, hand on her cheek, her eyes wide with shock. "Mom, what the hell is wrong with you? No wonder Dad left you. Catherine is sweet. You're just bitter and angry all the time." That was it. Final straw. Not the lie. Not the party. Not the word Mom said to someone else. It was that sentence, spoken with a voice I once sang lullabies to. "No wonder Dad left you." I looked at Riley for a long time, and for the first time in my life, felt nothing. No pain. No guilt. No anger. Just a cold, quiet understanding. My daughter wasn't my little girl anymore, and maybe she never would be again. Here's what I've come to learn. Sometimes the deepest wounds don't come from strangers. They come from the people you gave everything to. And when that happens, the bravest thing you can do is walk away. And that's exactly what I did. I packed my bags and left. But I wasn't just leaving a house. I was finally leaving a lifetime of sacrifice behind. Before we continue, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever felt like someone you loved turned their back on you? Have you ever had to choose between forgiveness and self-respect? Please take a moment and share your thoughts in the comments below. Whether it's heartbreak, strength, or just a quiet moment of reflection, we're here to listen. Your story might just be the one someone else needs to read today. That night, I packed my things in silence. No shouting. No goodbye. Just a quiet exit from a life I had spent decades building for someone else. As I zipped my suitcase, I glanced once more at the small cake still sitting on the table, untouched, forgotten. The candles I had never lit. The wish I had made just a few hours earlier. I wished to live the rest of my life for me. And so, I did. What Riley never knew was that I had another home. A small house tucked away on the edge of a quiet neighborhood. I had bought it years ago with my own savings, just in case. In case Jack ever turned out like Charles. In case Riley ever needed a safe place. But now it would be mine. For once, I wouldn't use my emergency fund to bail someone else out. I wouldn't pay another mortgage that wasn't mine. I wouldn't be the invisible support holding up a house where no one saw me. I would live, not just survive. The first morning in my new home, I didn't set an alarm. I didn't cook for anyone. I didn't fold anyone else's laundry. I made breakfast for myself, just me. I walked through the neighborhood, sat at a little cafe, bought a book I'd been meaning to read for years. For the first time in decades, no one was calling my name. No one needed me. And instead of loneliness, felt peace. Over the next few weeks, I did things I hadn't done since I was in my 20s. I bought a bright red scarf just because it made me feel bold. I signed up for a pottery class. I went to the movies by myself and didn't feel awkward about it. At the studio, I met Vanessa, a widow who had also been forgotten by the family she once lived for. We clicked instantly. Same pain, same disappointments. But we also shared the same decision. We weren't going to spend our golden years waiting around for people who never showed up. Together we planned a trip. The Grand Canyon. Something I'd always dreamed of seeing, but never had the time for. Funny how time suddenly appears when you stop giving it all away. Here's the truth I wish someone had told me earlier. It's never too late to choose yourself. You can be 65 and still start over. You can be a mother and still matter as a woman. You can walk away and still be whole. But healing isn't always a straight line. And sometimes the past finds its way back, uninvited. Just when I had started to rebuild, life gave me a front row seat to karma's performance. Because while I was learning to live, Riley's perfect world was starting to crumble. It started with a phone call I didn't answer. Then another. And another. Riley's name lit up my screen 5, 6, 7 times. But I let them ring. I was sitting by the ocean with Vanessa, watching the sun sink into the horizon, the sky painted in gold and fire. And for once, I didn't feel guilty for ignoring her. Until the next morning when Zoe, my old neighbor, also known as the unofficial town news channel, called me on video with a glint in her eyes. "You won't believe what just happened to your daughter," she said, turning the camera toward the charred remains of Riley's apartment complex. The windows were blackened. Smoke still curled into the sky. Apparently David, the son of Catherine, the same Catherine Riley had once chosen over me, had been staying at Riley's place. Uninvited. Unbothered. He brought his friends over for drinks and a party. One of them passed out with a lit cigarette in hand, next to an open bottle of alcohol. The couch caught fire. And just like that, everything burned. Jack barely made it home in time to see the smoke. David, instead of apologizing, blamed Jack. Demanded compensation. A fight broke out in the street. Neighbors came out. Words were shouted. Blame was thrown. And Riley stood in the middle of it all, watching her home, her life, go up in flames. Desperate, she ran to her father's house. Charles opened the door, looked her up and down and said, "There's no room here." Catherine stood behind him, silent. And the woman Riley had once called Mom turned her back and walked away. In a matter of days, Riley lost everything. Her home, her comfort, her sense of safety. But the worst was still to come. 1 week later, I stepped out of my pottery class and found myself in the middle of a scene I'll never forget. Right outside the hotel across the street, Riley was screaming. Standing opposite her was Jack. Beside him, Susan, Catherine's daughter. They were disheveled, flustered, and far too close. "You cheated on me," Riley cried, gripping Annie's hand. "We've been married for 7 years. How could you?" Jack rolled his eyes. "Don't be dramatic, Riley. What man doesn't cheat?" Susan smirked, leaned into him like she belonged there. "Come on," she purred. "She's boring now. No job, no spark. Just a tired housewife clinging to the past." Riley turned to Annie, trying to hold her. But Annie squirmed away. "You're mean," she shouted. "I want Susan to be my mommy." That was the moment. Riley froze. Her lips parted, but no words came. Just tears. The very child she had once used to shut me out now looked at her the same way she once looked at me. It was cruel, unforgiving, poetic. The same betrayal she had helped deliver to me had circled back, quiet as a whisper, and landed squarely in her lap. Here's the lesson no one wants to learn the hard way. When you choose people who hurt others, don't be surprised when they eventually hurt you too. Loyalty built on convenience always falls apart when things get hard. I didn't feel satisfaction. Not quite. But I did feel still. Steady. Like maybe, just maybe, the universe hadn't forgotten me after all. But what Riley did next was something I never saw coming. After losing everything, she found herself at my doorstep, with nothing left but the truth. It was nearly midnight when I heard the doorbell ring. I wasn't expecting anyone. The night was quiet, the air crisp, the neighborhood still. I opened the door slowly, and there she was. Really. Her hair was a mess, her clothes wrinkled. She looked smaller somehow, like a child again. But not the child I had once cradled in my arms. This was a woman who had been through the storm. And it showed. She didn't speak at first. Just stood there trembling. Then her voice cracked. "Mom, I was wrong. I didn't rush to hug her. Didn't cry. Didn't scold. I just looked at her, really looked. And for the first time in a long time I saw the girl I used to know. The one who once held my hand and said, 'It's just us now, Mommy.' She didn't come in with expectations. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She knew some things can't be undone. But she stayed, quietly, respectfully. She cooked dinner, washed dishes, sat with me in silence. She didn't demand that I love her again. She simply showed up every day. It was a start. One morning I came home from my walk with a box of pastries, her favorite kind, the ones I used to pack in her lunchbox. I placed them on the table without a word. When she saw them, her hands trembled. Tears welled in her eyes. We didn't say anything. We didn't need to. Healing doesn't always come with grand gestures. Sometimes it's just in the quiet moments. A warm meal, kind silence, a door that opens again. Over the months, Riley rebuilt her life. She found a small apartment, got a new job, slowly stood on her own feet. But this time she didn't disappear. She visited, brought flowers, asked how I was, not just out of habit but because she meant it. One day we walked through the park together. She looked at me and said softly, "You didn't deserve any of it, Mom. But thank you for still letting me in." I nodded, not because I had fully forgiven, but because I had made peace. Here's the truth I carry now. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. And love doesn't mean losing yourself. Sometimes the best way to move forward is simply choosing peace. Not for others but for your own heart. So no, we never went back to the way things were. But we found something else. Something quieter, steadier. Not a perfect relationship, but an honest one. And at this age, that's more than enough. Because after all the storms, the silence, the shattered birthdays, there is still time for healing. There is still space for second chances. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end of this story. If there's one lesson Amanda's journey teaches us, it's this. Loving others is beautiful, but forgetting to love yourself can leave the deepest scars. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is walk away. Not out of anger, but out of peace. I'd love to know, how did this story make you feel? Did it remind you of someone you know? Or maybe a time when you had to choose your own worth? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartfelt stories like this. Until next time, take care of yourself. You matter.